So first and foremost, Brian, I was, kind of taking a look at your website out there that you had, and tell me a little bit about your company, your position, and what you do. Looks like this was founded, it looks like by your dad, and then you joined in what I read 2002.
Correct. Yeah, my father started the agency back in 1981, 82. Um, he was in the insurance industry before that. He decided to break out, go on his own, opened up the agency. Fast forward so many years, and in October of 2002, after a few life changes in my life, I guess I went to the dark side, over to the agency side. I had vowed as a child I was never going to sit behind a desk, and years later, here I am, and I couldn't be happier.
Great. Yeah. And I see you were I'm looking at your profile here, fiber optics. You were working that. So you have a technical background.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I was in the fiber optic industry actually twice. The first time was with MCI.
Okay.
I got my feet wet with MCI and moved to a different type of job out of the fiber optic business for 6 years, and then got back into fiber optic business. I would say the late 90s, and I ended that, which was one of the major life changes that I had gone through. The when MCI went belly up, it really just shook that industry, and I chose at that point I wasn't gonna work for corporate America anymore, and I was gonna do it myself.
Very good. Well, here you are on the dark side, but on the good dark side, I'm sure, not on the
That's
corporate
right.
side. So,
That's right. That's
so,
right.
tell me a little bit. We'll kind of get into the Align side here. First off, how long have you been using Align phone systems?
December 23rd. Not that anybody's counting the days, but I remember it clearly because it was right before the holidays. We were the office was going to be closed for a couple days, obviously due to the holiday, and typically that is the beginning of a 2-week vacation that I usually take because the office is relatively slow. And I was a little on the nervous side, leaving the office, especially with people who don't understand the phones as much as I did, just by, not that I understood the phones all that well, but with the limited amount of time that I had with them, I knew them better than everyone else. So there was a bit of a learning curve.
Okay. So how initially did you hear about Align, and what kind of drew you to the product? Talk a little bit about your buyer journey.
Well, it was kind of odd. I mean, we were always looking for ways to become more automated. Now, there's over the years, I've found that there's a couple different ways that you can become automated. One is just jump right into the pool and do what you have to do. It typically costs a lot more to do that upfront. However, it pays off in the end. There's going to be a learning curve to that as well. Our office is small. We're a 4-person operation, and I was looking for ways to try to automate the agency a little bit more, as well as potentially save some dollars. We had Buckeye Telesystems for years. Now, when I say for years, I'm talking when my father started the agency.
Oh, wow.
Back in the early 80s, he had Buckeye. I mean, that's all that existed. So, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, I guess, is the mentality that we use. I knew there was more out there. When voice over IP was thrown across my lap, I was like, well, I heard about this, and I've always been under the impression that it was unattainable. The upfront costs are incredible. The equipment costs, the setup fees. I didn't really know. I guess ignorance played a pretty big part in it. I just didn't know. I spoke to our internet provider, and the person that I usually deal with suggested looking at voice over IP, and actually suggested Aline.
Okay. And who's your internet provider?
The internet provider it's Buckeye Cable, but we get it through ToastNet.
ToastNet. Okay. Yeah, they're over on Monroe Street. I've heard of them a couple
Yes.
times.
Yes.
Okay. So how is, you talk about automation, obviously, with all the technology out there, everyone wants to do things more efficient, more quickly, more cost effective. How has Align helped automate some of, different aspects in your business that you talked about, maybe streamline some processes or whatnot?
Wow. I mean, where do you start? I guess the best way to put it is we went from a rotary dial phone, and I'm being facetious, but we went from a rotary phone to voice over IP. So where do you begin? The choices of different types of things, the way you can make a call. You can do it on a conference call a lot easier than you could with our old system. I mean, with the old system, you had to put the person on hold, then you had to call the other person. And it was just, there were so many steps involved to try and get a conference call. And I was limited. to, two people on a conference call. I mean, is that really a conference? Or is that just a discussion with two people?
Right.
Video conference. You couldn't do it. It's just that simple. We just could not do video conferencing. We had caller ID. I mean, big deal. Who doesn't have caller ID anymore?
Mm-hmm.
The voicemail, visual voicemail, any voicemails come in via email. I like that, but it also comes in, I believe it's a WAV file or MP3.
Mm-hmm.
I can literally take that file and listen to it. If I'm not at my desk, I can, it's on my phone, which leads into the Align app that you have. That in itself, I mean, that's a lifesaver in my book, because I do have one of my employees is working from home because she has a special needs daughter, and she's just trying to be safe and, avoid the whole COVID
Right.
exposure. So her being able to answer phones from home it's priceless. She's a valuable tool and a valuable asset to the agency. And it was so difficult having her work from home before we switched the phones over. She was unable to answer phones, so we had to pick up that workload. Now with the mobile app, I mean, it's almost as if she's here.
Right.
We have weekly meetings every Thursday. We do it via video conference. It makes a difference. Having a telephone conference with somebody is one thing, but having a video conference, I mean, you put a face with a name, and I could say the same thing with a client. I mean, this is the first time you and I met. And
Right.
now I put a face with the name. It means a little bit more. It adds value to the agency, I think.
And two, what's cool about it is you're 100 miles away from me. I think we talked before. I live in Lorain and you're in Toledo. Of course, I used to live in Toledo, but it's like you can just communicate anywhere across the world. And right now, the video feed I'm getting from you, it's crystal clear. It's
Right.
like I'm talking right beside you there. So it's quite remarkable. And, for our company, we've had like 50 plus employees, and we're all still working remote, except for I think 3 or 4, trying to transition back May 1st. So that's been huge for us. And of course, a lot of the bigger companies have done that as well. But those are things we never anticipated pre-COVID. And here we are.
Well, if
Um,
you would have said to me 10 years ago, hey, you're going to have people working from home and you're going to have the ability to work from home, I'd have
yeah.
laughed at you.
Yeah,
There's just no way.
right. Yeah, and I remember Skype too. I wouldn't have believed it
Yeah.
either because Skype was like
Skype.
always breaking up and everything, and it was like,
Sure.
you wonder if it'd ever advance. Um,
Right. Right.
but Brian, you talked about some of the cost savings that you've experienced from switching. Could you dive a little bit deeper into those? What that's done as far as maybe the upfront costs or even perhaps the monthly cost?
Well, the cost savings, I guess, is all relative. I deal with costs, the cost of things every single day. And when I say the cost of things, I'm talking about insurance coverages. Uh, we can strip a policy down to virtually nothing. And what's my cost savings? Well, the cost savings is great, but there's no value. It's about the value that's being brought to the table. So if I can give you the same or better coverage than what you currently have,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a savings there, well then, yeah, now we're talking. But just savings alone isn't going to make me move much. In this case, the savings is, I guess, minimal. Not it's it's not enough to break the bank, but it is a savings. But the value that's being brought to the table is unmatched. I mean, video conferencing, the conference call without the video, it's essentially unlimited. I only have 2 lines now, whereas
Mm-hmm.
before I had 4 or 6.
Wow.
The mobile app, the recording of every single call in my business. I don't know if you know what E&O is,
Not
errors and
familiar.
omissions. It's professional liability. Professional liability is huge in my business. We are considered insurance professionals, and we are held to a higher standard. So if I tell you something, essentially, if I tell you that it is covered, well, guess what? It's covered, whether the contract says it is or not. Now, if it's not covered under the contract, then errors and omissions professional liability will cover it, if it gets to that point. So being able to record phone calls when you call me up and we start chit-chatting about cars and about your family and, oh, my kid did this and my kid did that. And then we talk about something else with your policy, but you forgot to tell me about that car that you purchased. And you get into an accident a month later, there's no coverage. You're going to call me up and you're going to say, I told you I got a new car. And I'm going to tell you, you didn't. So now you have 2 options. You can either eat that loss, or you can file an E&O claim saying, well, I did. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up that recording of that call and I'm going to play it for you. And you will hear it yourself. I mean, it's coming out of your own mouth that you never mentioned a new
Right.
car. I just saved myself filing a claim against my professional liability.
And a lot of time and headache and everything and
Oh,
losing
headache, without a
sleep.
doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh my.
So that value in itself essentially pays for it. The out-of-pocket costs per month, it's all relative. But savings in my mind in this case, it was unmatched.
Right.
Unmatched. I mean, the physical savings, yeah, it did save us a little bit, probably $20 to $30 a month less than what I was paying with Buckeye Telesystems. And that is a big deal. I don't mean to minimize that, but it's still
Sure.
the value is
Right.
there.
Yeah. More bang for your buck in
Oh, without a
layman's
doubt.
terms, I would say.
Yeah,
Well, very good.
without a
So
doubt.
what would you say to someone? There's a lot of people, we've talked to, and I used to be on the sales side as well. They say, oh, I'm on the fence. It seems like it's a lot of work to get started. Even yourself, it's something you said you didn't quite understand What would you say to someone that's on the fence to even switching to not only Align, but VoIP in general?
It's different. Don't get me wrong. I mean, not all calls are like this, but when there are some calls, depending on the other person's internet speed, depending on your internet speed, there
Right.
could be a little bit of a lag. Occasionally, the phone call will drop off, but that's not, that happened with the other phone system. Um, Things like that happen, and it's few and far between. Um, is it something to be concerned about? No, absolutely not. Again, the value supersedes any of that. You're going to have issues with whatever you do. Is it scary to change? I guess it could be. There's a saying that people have that says people don't like change. Well, I disagree with that. People don't mind change as long as there is a benefit to them, and that's the way I look at it. Was there a learning curve? Oh, you bet there was. You can talk to Zach, the Align help desk guy. Him and
Uh-huh.
I are on a first name basis. I was calling him. Heck, the only thing I didn't do is invite him over for Christmas dinner. Uh, he's a good guy. He knows his stuff,
Mhm.
and it's a little bit of a learning curve. But I feel like I've picked up on it well enough. I've already gone online and chose my on hold music, and Zach helped me with a online program that lowers the volume of the on hold music. I know that sounds dumb, but I had several people say, "My gosh, your on hold music is so loud."
Mhm.
That's a concern. I don't want to make my clients deaf.
Right. Yeah. And you got a nice greeting too. I called you, I think it was last week, and you have a nice greeting kind of talking about your business when you call in. Very personable and gives personality to your business and identity, which is very nice.
Right. Yeah. When people call in, I don't want to be like everybody else. And when I say everybody else, I'm talking, I don't want to be like all other companies where when you call in, you're just a number. We we don't have clients here. We have relationships here. Uh, Everyone is a part of our family, and we treat everyone just like that.
All right, Brian. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you for taking the time.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
See ya.